All right, we're back. Juwan Howard's team, Michigan, they lost. Got blown out by Wisconsin. Now they're a bubble team. They lost. Let me figure this out here. What am I missing here? Wisconsin was up 14 and took a timeout with almost no time left, and that's what Juwan Howard got upset about and would not shake the Wisconsin head coach. What's his name? Greg Gard wouldn't shake his hand. They went nose to nose. They went chest to chest. And eventually, Juwan Howard, let's go. Now, this is what it is. It's I want to get on basketball players for not being able to fight because it doesn't make sense to these guys. It's like, I don't know why they can't, they're just not knockouts every time they do something like this. But I kind of feel like he purposely didn't clench his fist, right? Because that's more trouble than a slap. Yeah. This seemed to be somewhere in between. And Joe Krabenhoft, the assistant coach, was on the receiving end of this open hand slap. And now it's all up. Oh, does Howard deserve to be fired? Should he be suspended? What do we do? How outraged should we be? Martin, I want to hear your thoughts first because you're a Michigan Wolverine fan. I know you're embarrassed a little. I'm going to talk you off the ledge, I think.
Well, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, damn, he's going to lose his job. And it was more like, this sucks for Juwan Howard. I was kind of like, that was my first. And then it was just like, but you can't do that. You can't let that happen, right? Mm-hmm. You can't lose your cool. And there's all these, there's so much that goes into it, like between just even optically with the race aspect, with the coach, the other coach being white, and then Wisconsin, for all intents and purposes being one of those types of programs that is, that they seem to always have 6, 7 white guys on the court at a time. And it's like, how is that possible? We're only playing 5 at once. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, it's Wisconsin, so it's already that. So he's already Juwan Howard and all of that into it. And this is the second time he's gotten into it with an opposing coach. It's just Mark Turgeon is such an asshole to everybody else that everybody was like, well, Mark Turgeon's really an asshole to everybody else.
Right.
My problem with Juwan Howard is, all right, we've seen, if you want to talk about the post-game press conference or post-game handshakes and their relevancy, that's a different conversation for a different day. Because no one had a problem with it yesterday. Or 2 days ago, everybody had a problem with it yesterday, right?
Oh yeah.
But you can't, as the coach of the team, when they separate you and they put you apart, you have to go. You can't go and re-stoke the fire. And I get that he muffed him. That's what we would call. He muffed him. He took his hand and kind of. It wasn't exactly it wasn't a slap, it's not a punch, it's a muff. He muffed him and he got him good. But it's just, and part of it is too, like let's talk about Myles Garrett, like in the Mason Rudolph thing. There's debated if that did happen or not, right? But when Myles Garrett took his helmet off and bopped him in the head with it, it now all of a sudden is this whole attitude of like, we're never going to find out if actually really what happened because everybody was like, well, what about that? What about the helmet? And so in a moment like that, and this is part of the way I was brought up and, it's just being raised, being black in America, you can't, if somebody says something to you like that, you can't wild out because you'll never get your justice. He'll never, if that is what happened, it doesn't even seem like that is what happened. But we're not even talking about the fact that this guy called a completely bullshit timeout because he was pressing and he said he didn't want his players couldn't break a press in 4 seconds. It's like, well, that's what you practice for, champ. You know what I'm saying? Or the idea that Juwan Howard didn't initiate the contact initially, right? We're not talking about any of that. What we're talking about is the fact Juwan Howard went and muffed him in the face. Right? And it's like all of these different things these things all matter in the scheme of it. But when you lose your cool, you don't, because that's what the whole media is there for. That's what everybody's there for. Everybody's watching and you're in charge. So if you go back and you go to the post-game press conference, you be like, look, this is what happened, this is what happened, this is what happened, and that guy over there, he's a freaking asshole. Then I don't have a problem with it. I didn't have a problem with it. And then him grabbing him by the arm, or the coach grabbing him by the arm and telling him like he wants to stop and talk to him. Like, no, man, don't touch me. You know what I'm saying? It's evident that I don't want to be touched. But you can't, Juwan Howard, you made a tacit agreement that you were going to go through this handshake line at the start of the game, right? So just go there, slap hands real quick. Even if it was a Harbaugh Schwartz situation from a couple Thanksgivings ago where he's chasing him down. That's all. If you shook his hand, it's over. I have nothing more to say to you, right? But that was the end of that. So that to me is a social contract Juwan Howard broke by not just We all do it after every game. After every game, we all shake hands, except for the All-Star game with Magic Johnson when they hugged, and that was the end of it, right? But that's the idea. That's what we do here. So,
yeah,
I don't think he should lose his job, though. I mean, Big Ten policy says what? 2 games and $10,000 or $100,000 seems about right. If you want to suspend him for the conference tournament, all right. If they make it to March, let him coach. He shouldn't lose his job.
Yeah, I don't either. Listen, they're on the bubble. That's another issue here. Like if he was this wouldn't be as big a deal if he was a 1 seed coach. I do think yes, he shouldn't be fired. This is ridiculous. I will also say this: if one slap, or what did you call it, Martin? What is it?
A muff.
If one muff can do away with opposing coaches calling timeouts up 14 with 15 seconds left, then it was all worth it. I'm gonna say I don't want to watch it. I know it won't.
There's no part of it that's not an asshole move on his part.
I know that's not the result we're gonna get here, but really, that's what jumped out at me. Also, I get it. You can't strike opposing coaches and everything, but I miss it, Shaq. I kind of like it. I like Calipari. I like Chaney. I like that stuff. I like those days. I miss it. To add to that, it's closing in. I still think your guy Bobby Knight is the biggest asshole coach in Big Ten history, and this is not going to change it.
I agree. I feel like there is much truth over the last 3-ish minutes of this Extra Points podcast that's been shared with the listener. First of all, as a side note, by the way, from frozen wieners to muffs, and by the way, in hockey, it's called a face wash when you do that to somebody with the open hand like that. But yes, as a side note, what Myles Garrett did, that's why it was so deplorable to invoke racism when probably wasn't. But that's another conversation. That was another thing that happened there. But yes, Marty hits at something that is true that I feel like people are very nervous to kind of engage on. And rightly, which is that are we talking about the world we want or the world that is? And it does matter that Juwan Howard is a black man. And the heat around it is very different than if it were 2 white guys. I mean, Chuck Noll did that to guys at the AFC Central rival coaches, like put them in, like, hey, let me tell you something. You better tell your guys to cut the shit or else, like all that kind of stuff.
Buddy Ryan, obviously with that.
Right, I punched Kevin Gilbride right in front of everybody. The world didn't break or anything, but Juwan Howard. And on the other side of it, there is something to the Charles Barkley. I don't want to make too big a deal out of this, but the Chaz Barkley thing from way back in the 80s, like I'm not a role model. And it's kind of like there is heat on you, whether you want it or not, if you're a public figure. But then again, I can go the other way back to like, they're gym teachers. That's what coaches are. Like they're not, these are not progressive thought leaders necessarily. So they're in a weird spot. And so ultimately I agree with Marty that Juwan Howard has to be more lucid for himself, and wearing like I'm a role model for other people. I don't know where to take that, but I think Marty's right that it's in the world we live in. It gets extra heat because of that factor.
Well, Martin's
I also go back to
Muhammad
Ali is a one-off. Everybody is not like Muhammad Ali just because you're in the spotlight and have something to say to move society along. It's great that people do that, but not everybody in that spot, by virtue of being in a high-end athletic position, makes you somebody who should be representing other people. The guy, like, put your hands on me. Don't put your hands on me. It's like, keep your hands off me. And being lucid in that moment about who you're representing, it's too much. It's not. It's 2 coaches fighting, Sal. They're exactly right. What I like is that I like when the 2 guys don't like each other. They're supposed to be rivals. So let's leave it at that. It's a sports conversation. It doesn't have to be bigger than that.
I like the handshake after the game, whether it's hockey playoffs, they do it best, right? They go at each other for 7 games sometimes, and then there's the line. It's a big ceremonial thing. After each game, college basketball, they line up. They shake hands. I think that's good. That's good for the country. Bring them together. But if there's a fight, 1 out of every 100 handshakes, I like that too.
I do too.
I don't mind it.
I'm with you.
I don't mind
I mean, the John Chaney Calipari thing is one of the all-time
funniest. Well, that was in a post-game
things.
press conference in a room. That wasn't even on the court, right?
That's the funniest thing of all time. Yeah, that's my all-time. I mean, Sam Weiss going to the microphone and condemning Cincinnati fans. You're not in Cleveland. You're in Cincinnati. Is the funniest coach moment ever.
Right.
Number 2, though, is John Chaney going into a press conference and shouting at Calipari, "I'm going to kill you." It's pretty funny too.
As I sit back and think about it more and more, him going back in the moment into the after he was separated, him going back because that just let everybody know no rules are being followed here. Because I'm thinking if I was a 21-year-old kid, if I was 20 years old at that time, I was rough and tumble, buddy. I would have been in there throwing hands. I would have been ready to go. And especially if my coach is going with me, let's get it. Which is why I feel like Juwan Howard's got to be the guy to stop that, right? Because 21-year-old me we're diving in head first, just like I dove in head first to go play this whole game. I don't like those suckers anyway. You know what I'm saying? I might as well get to it. So that's that. And so even if he had been in the post game and maybe I don't know, maybe it's all antiquated pie in the sky bullshit. But the idea that a guy is still a college coach, you still got to go and sit in somebody's living room and convince you, Sal, that this is where you want to send Archie, or you, Dave, this is where you're going to send Jean-Claude Van Damme II. It's going to be his best opportunity to A, get an education, and B, maybe become a professional athlete. And I think that still matters, even though that one and dones and so on and so forth. You. That still matters to me. So Charles Barkley may not be a role model, but he's a professional athlete. And I'm not saying that college head coaches need to be or are good role models in general, but you can't have a moment like that.
But my pushback to that is pretty straightforward. I hear you completely that the look of it is something you could use against. Like, you're going to send your kid to go play for that guy, for that kook? Like, who are we comparing him to? Urban Meyer or Bob Knight? I mean, these guys are all shitbags. I mean, that's my pushback for all of this stuff, and it may be too tepid rationalization for people, but
a 22-year-old you would have been like, but you would have had nothing negative to say about this if you were 22. This is 30 years later now.
That's because I'm a more mature man now, Dave. But listen, yeah, that's right. I mean, I hear what you're saying, Marty, except that who are we holding up as the alternatives? I mean, like I say, which of these guys is sort of a really profound philosopher about the human condition? They're all a bunch of gym coaches.
And to your point, anytime that Steve Kerr or Greg Popovich say, "Hey, I read the news today," it becomes like this big moment. Right. So I mean, I understand the overall.
Exceptions that prove the rule, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Right. There are a couple guys you can cite because they stand out so easily from everybody else. Yeah, Steve Kerr is an actually super smart human being.